In this lesson, we'll learn how we can use an opacity mask to alter the transparency of artwork within a design. Alright, so in previous lessons we talked about the Draw Inside mode in Adobe Illustrator and how that essentially creates a clipping mask with your artwork. Now, a clipping mask is a very basic type of mask within Illustrator that either allows artwork to be shown or hidden, one or the two. There's no in between. Now, a more advanced type of mask that you want to be familiar with is the opacity mask in Illustrator. Now, an opacity mask allows you to use varying degrees of transparency within your mask. So, let's go ahead and check out where those are built from. We can open our transparency panel over here on the right. This is where your opacity masks are going to be created. Now, right now we don't have anything showing in this window, but we haven't targeted any artwork for a mask yet. So let's take a look at our design here and look at maybe some opportunities to create an opacity mask. Now, I'm going to come over here first and take a look maybe at these vines and these stylized flourishes that we've added into our header. Now, you know, after I've got that blend in here, I'm looking at those and thinking, well, maybe those flourishes are just a little bit strong. Maybe I want to create a mask that blends those in and makes them a little more transparent as they get closer to our navigational menu here. So, I'll tell you what, let's come over here and check out our layers and make sure we're on our header layer, and let's go ahead and select these stylized flourishes that we've got here. I'm going to hold Shift and select multiple items here. Now, I'm also going to come in here and select this item that's behind our logo. So it's kind of a distressed piece of artwork there. So let's go ahead and select that. We've selected our logo, so let's hold Shift and deselect that. So we've got basically those three groups of objects selected here. And I'm going to go ahead and group all three of those together with a Control G. Now that brought everything to the front, so I'm going to go ahead and send those a little further to the back here. Let's go ahead and send them all the way to the back and bring them forward a few steps at a time till they are in front of our gradient. There we go. Now, with these items selected, let's come over here and take a look at our transparency panel now. You see here we have a thumbnail listed right here in this preview area. This thumbnail means that we have artwork targeted for an opacity mask. So I tell you what, the way to create an opacity mask is either to double click on this empty area right here to the right of that preview, or we can come over here and choose the option to make opacity mask from this little flyout menu. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and choose that now. And you'll notice here that a black thumbnail appears next to our targeted artwork, and there's a little chain link in between the two thumbnails. So notice that there's also a black outline around our artwork, this preview here on the left. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and select our thumbnail here on the right, and that black outline will move, and this indicates that we are working inside our opacity mask. Now, notice that when we entered into our opacity mask, our artwork has disappeared. And that's because we have this little check box here marked for clip. Now, what this does essentially is it gives our opacity mask a black background. And we know that black means we're going to hide the artwork. So the way an opacity mask works is that it's going to use a black to white gradient to define the areas of the artwork that's going to be visible and hidden within our opacity mask. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and unclip this mask, and you'll notice here that our artwork comes back. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and grab my rectangle tool, and let's go ahead and draw in a shape within our mask here to apply a gradient to. So I'm going to come in and draw this in, and I tell you what, let's go ahead and use our smart guides and snap that into position here. Just like so. And notice that our rectangle has a black fill right now. So again, our artwork is hidden. But let's come over here to our gradient panel and let's apply a linear gradient to this. Alright, so if we grab our gradient tool, it's right here in your toolbox, and it's keyboard shortcut G, we'll get our gradient annotator here. Now, we've got a gradient moving from left to right, white to black. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and resize this and rotate this some. So I'm going to just resize this gradient. And I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to hold Shift to constrain this. So I'm moving at 45-degree angles. And we're going to have the black side of this gradient be closer to our navigational bar. So this gradient will fade out the closer it gets to our navigational bar here. So I'm just going to reposition this gradient here to my liking. And I think that looks pretty good. So I'll tell you what, let's come over here and look at our transparency panel now. Now we've got one other checkbox here, and it's to invert the mask. And that's really quite simple. It just means we're going to invert this mask to where the white areas are hidden and the black areas are revealed, opposite the way it is right now. So you can see here if I do that, it's going to switch that around. And I know it's kind of hard to see because of the gradient here, but the white area here in our gradient is actually the area that's being hidden. So I don't want to do that, so let's go ahead and uncheck that box. And now to exit our opacity mask, we need to make sure and remember to click again on this left thumbnail to target our artwork. If we don't, we're not going to be able to come in here and work with anything else besides our masking shape. So real important to remember. Let's go ahead and select our artwork layer here. And let's deselect the artwork now. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So there's one other area here that I think that I'd like to use an opacity mask, and it's maybe right here for this scooter icon. Maybe we want to do sort of a reflection underneath this icon. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and make a copy of this. I'm just going to select this group of objects and hold down my Alt key and drag down a copy of that. And let's go ahead and go to Object and choose Transform and Reflect. And let's reflect this horizontally here. So it reverses that. Now I'm going to go ahead and squish this down just a little bit so it appears that it's reflecting on the ground in front of our scooter. Now at this point, let's go ahead and make a masking shape. So I'm just going to, with my artwork selected, come up here and choose Make Opacity Mask. And notice here that we've added a thumbnail to the right, but we still have our artwork targeted. So let's go ahead and target our mask, and let's go ahead and draw in a shape here. Now that's just a white rectangle, and I switched to that using my keyboard shortcut to go to the rectangle tool. Now let's go ahead and apply a linear gradient to that. Alright, and if we switch over to our gradient tool with the keyboard shortcut G, we can rotate this gradient annotator around and really position this gradient so it appears that this reflection is tapering off and we don't see maybe the entire reflection. So let's go ahead and just drag this up and reposition this just a little bit here. Alright, so that looks pretty good for right now. Now let's go ahead and switch back over to our transparency panel. Now notice we have our mask clipped again. This is the default. So I tell you what, if we go ahead and just resize this shape maybe, you can see here that because of that clip and that black background on our opacity mask, we no longer have the original artwork visible if our masking shape doesn't cover the entire artwork. So if we uncheck that clip box, we'll still be able to see our original artwork, and that's because it has a white background to it. So again, I'm going to go ahead and clip that here, and let's just go ahead and resize this masking shape. Make sure the entire artwork is visible here. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and switch back over and target our artwork and not our mask now. Now, let's talk about how our artwork right now is linked to our opacity mask. Notice that with our artwork targeted, we can go ahead and move this artwork around, and the mask is going to move with it here. So let's go ahead and undo that and move that back. If we were to unlink this mask, just like so, we could move this artwork around. Let's exit isolation mode here. Let's move this artwork around, and the mask is going to stay where it is. See, we've lost half of our scooter here because we've moved it outside the masking shape. So that is what linking your mask does. I usually leave my mask linked to the artwork. I can't think of really a reason right now why you would want to unlink that, but I tell you what, let's go ahead and right now talk about another way that we can edit our masks. So let's go ahead and select our mask mode, and again we have our mask selected here, but again we see everything around our mask, and maybe we want to work just on our mask here. Maybe our mask is a little more complex of a shape, and we need to work specifically with the mask because there's one portion of it that's not quite right. We can actually hold down our Alt key and click on our masking thumbnail here, and that's going to isolate just our mask. We're going to go into sort of an isolation mode just on the mask, so it hides everything else. We can just work with this masking shape and not have anything else interfering with that. So let's go ahead and exit out of this. Let's just click back on our artwork here, and notice we've got the artwork targeted again. Now, if you ever need to disable your mask but not completely delete it, you can actually hold Shift and click on this masking thumbnail right here. and notice that a red X is going to appear on top of our opacity mask, and it's no longer visible on our artwork. So we've actually just disabled the mask, and we can again hold down Shift and click on that and re-enable that opacity mask. Now, if you ever decide you need to release an opacity mask and just completely get rid of it, you can always come up here to this little flyout menu and choose the Release Opacity Mask option here. And that will actually separate the mask from its artwork and leave you with that masking shape here on your artboard. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and undo that. I want to go ahead and keep that here. Alright, and I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and just deselect that here and zoom out. Yeah, I really like the way those opacity masks work on that artwork, and those are no longer bothering me. So in this lesson, we have learned about the power of opacity masks and how we can integrate those into our artwork. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and encourage you, try experimenting with some opacity masks in your own work and see what kind of interesting effects you can create.